Welcome to today's inspiration called Believing is Seeing. The world tells us, I'll believe it when I see it. But the way God works is quite the opposite. When it comes to faith, believing is what allows us to truly see. It's when we trust in God's promises, even when we can't see the whole picture, that our spiritual eyes begin to open. Hebrews chapter 11:1 reminds us, faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Faith allows us to glimpse what God is doing, even if it's not visible yet. So today, we're going to explore 7 ways to live out the truth that believing is seeing, helping us to walk with deeper faith and a clearer view of God's presence in our lives. Faith brings forth vision. Faith allows us to see the world through God's perspective. The very world we live in, everything we see and touch, was created by His command. Think about the significance of that. God created all things from nothing, bringing visible beauty and order out of emptiness. In a similar way, faith allows us to look at the empty or chaotic areas in our lives and believe that God is bringing something good out of them. Just as He created the universe, He can create purpose and meaning in places that seem barren or confusing. Take a moment to consider an area in your life that feels uncertain or challenging. It could be a relationship, a work situation, or even your own mental or emotional state. Instead of asking God to simply change it, ask Him to open your eyes to see what He's doing in it. Ask Him to help you trust that He's at work, weaving together the pieces that will one day reveal His greater plan for you. Through faith, we gain a new perspective, one that trusts that God is always creating, always working, and always present, even when things seem unclear. Faith strengthens us in weakness. Faith invites us to lean on God's strength when we feel our own strength running low. It's natural to think that we need to have it all together to succeed, but God's way is different. In fact, He tells us that His power is made perfect in our weakness. Faith lets us embrace our limitations because we know that when we're at the end of our own resources, God is just beginning to work. Instead of our weakness being a setback, it becomes a starting point for God's power. Think about an area in your life where you feel weak or inadequate. It could be a personal struggle, a lack of confidence, or an emotional challenge. Rather than seeing these feelings as failures, see them as opportunities for God to show up in new ways. When we come to Him honestly and openly, admitting our need, we make space for His grace to fill us. Every time you feel like you can't do it on your own, remember, this is where God can start. Let that be a place of trust and growth, knowing that God's power shines brightest when we're willing to lean fully on Him. Faith is tested in trials. Trials test and refine our faith, much like fire refines gold. When we face hardships, our faith is stretched, and it's through these challenges that our faith grows stronger. The idea of finding joy in trials isn't about pretending they aren't painful. It's about trusting that they serve a purpose. God uses trials to refine our character, develop perseverance, and make us more like Him. Faith allows us to see trials as opportunities, not obstacles. When you encounter a difficult season, try to see it as a time of growth. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" ask, "What are you teaching me, Lord?" Trials reveal our deepest needs and point us back to God. When you start to view challenges as a way for God to shape and strengthen you, you begin to find peace, even in the pain. Every hardship is a stepping stone to a stronger, more resilient faith, and one day you'll look back and see that God was using every trial to bring you closer to Him. Faith moves mountains. Even a small amount of faith can have a big impact. Jesus uses the mustard seed, one of the tiniest seeds, to illustrate that size doesn't matter as much as the sincerity and focus of our faith. Faith allows us to speak to the mountains in our lives, the overwhelming obstacles and challenges we face, and believe that God can move them. It's not about the size of our faith, but about the greatness of the one in whom we place that faith. Think about a mountain you're facing. It could be a habit you want to break, a dream that seems out of reach, or a relationship that needs healing. Take a small step of faith today. Pray about it, speak God's promises over it, and believe that He's able to do what you can't. With each step, you're saying, God, I trust you with this mountain. Remember, God doesn't ask for perfect faith. He just asks for genuine faith, no matter how small it may feel. That's all He needs to do the miraculous. Faith is the foundation of our identity. Faith in Christ changes everything about how we see ourselves. When we place our faith in Him, we receive a new identity, one that's not based on our past, our achievements, or the opinions of others. Our worth is found in who we are as children of God. Faith roots us in this identity, giving us confidence that we're loved, valued, and known by our Creator. It frees us from needing to prove ourselves to the world. If you struggle with insecurity or self-worth, take time to remind yourself of who you are in Christ. Write this verse down somewhere you'll see it often, and let it remind you that you are no longer defined by what others think or even by your own doubts. You are defined by God's love, grace, and purpose for your life. Embrace this identity with confidence and let it guide how you approach every decision, every relationship, and every challenge. Faith overcomes fear. Faith overcomes fear by reminding us that God is with us. Fear often tries to convince us that we're alone or that things will go wrong, but faith speaks the truth. We are never alone, and God is in control. When fear arises, faith gives us the courage to face it head-on. It allows us to trust that God will guide us through every worry, every doubt, and every anxious thought. Faith gives us peace, knowing that no matter what happens, God's presence is constant. If you're struggling with fear, hold on to this verse. Imagine God speaking it directly to you, saying, I am with you, and I will uphold you. Fear may still try to creep in, but every time it does, turn back to faith. Let it be a reminder that God's hand is on you, that He's protecting you, and that His plans for you are good. Over time, faith will become stronger than your fears, and you'll find a new sense of peace and courage in His presence. Faith sees beyond this life. Faith gives us a vision that stretches beyond this temporary world. It allows us to look forward to the promise of eternity, where there will be no more pain, struggle, or loss. This doesn't mean we ignore the challenges we face here and now. It means that we can face them with hope, knowing that they're only temporary and that there's a greater joy awaiting us. Faith gives us a new perspective, helping us find purpose in the here and now while holding on to the promise of what's to come. Take time each day to reflect on eternity. Remember that your life is part of a bigger story. Let this eternal perspective help you find peace when things are difficult and give you hope when things seem uncertain. This world, with all its struggles and joys, is just a part of God's plan. The promise of eternity reminds us that God's love and purpose for us go far beyond what we can see or experience here. Let this hope anchor you, giving you the strength to face today with peace and purpose. Thank you for joining in on this journey of faith. The world around us may say, seeing is believing, but in God's kingdom, it's often the other way around. Believing is seeing. When we place our faith in God, we begin to see His presence, His hand, and His purpose in every part of our lives. Faith isn't just about hoping, it's about knowing. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.